National Tax Freedom Day. You know that day when the average American has worked long enough to pay his share of taxes for the year, and it's still 5 days away for the nation. But the low taxes in Tennessee means the volunteer state has been celebrating their freedom from taxes since the end of March. And today, the Tennessee House voted to repeal its death tax and cut their food tax. Joining me now, Tennessee's Republican Governor, Bill Haslam. Welcome to the show, Governor. Great to have you here. Congratulations. I know this is something you worked for. Do you think it'll make a big difference to Tennessee and its economic prospects?
I think it will. You know, as you mentioned in your intro, we are a low-tax state now. If you live in Tennessee, you finish paying taxes 12 days ago on average, which, like I said, is about 18, 19 days ahead of the rest of the country, which is all your money for that 3-week period. But I do think this will make a difference. The one thing that I think we had a state tax that was out of whack was the estate or death tax. And it was causing people to move or not to relocate here. So if you had a estate of a certain value, you got to an age you thought, you know, I love living in Tennessee, but it might be cheaper to die in Florida.
Right, exactly. It was said you even had people leave and move to retire in Florida because of that difference. You've taken some heat, though, for not doing this sooner. Art Laffer, in particular, was sort of after you and the Wall Street Journal editorial page, frankly. Both of them after you to get this done sooner. And here's what Laffer said about waiting. They said over a decade, the cost of the estate tax was $7 billion in state and local revenue, 200,000 jobs, and 14% economic growth. At the end of the day, you got it done. You got it in place. Do you feel like you waited too long?
You know, this is we've been in office for 14 months, and to do away with a tax that's been in place for a long time, I think this quickly is significant. And significantly, we got it passed with pretty handsome majorities in both houses. So, you know, the issue is this, and we love the fact that Art Laffer lives here in Tennessee, but I think and we hope he doesn't die for a long time. But the important thing is, but so we'd like him around for a long time. But when he does, when he does, his heirs will be in good shape. And I think, like I said, when you take a tax that is punitive to folks, and it does chase capital away, and you know, states are a great laboratory for this reason. They can show the nation what's done because people literally do choose, and we make decisions for economic reasons. And I know a lot of people that were living in Tennessee that got to a certain age that moved their official residence elsewhere, and sometimes that meant investing their capital elsewhere. And, you know, as we say all the time, government doesn't create jobs. We don't. It's people with capital that are willing to risk that capital that create jobs. And if we're not encouraging them to be here, somebody else will.
Well, as I've said many times on this show, the estate tax is actually the third tax on your earnings because you invest those, you get the earnings, you get tax on them, you invest the earnings, you get tax on it, and then the estate tax is the final insult for people who work hard all their lives. Now, your plan phases the estate tax out over about 4 years, as I understand it. But I also want to talk about the rest of what you're doing down there in Tennessee in the volunteer state, because I don't think a lot of people understand that you have this track record that is, you know, I mean, I hate to say nice things to politicians, but it's really pretty good. You've gone a long way to ending collective bargaining. There's tort reform and school reform. Let's start with collective bargaining. Now, this was not big headlines across the nation. What did you do?
Well, last year we actually had two significant pieces. One was tenure reform that basically took it from 3 years where everybody got it to 5 years, and then you had to grade out in one of the top two categories. And we also
you had to earn it. You had to earn it. It wasn't an automatic thing.
Exactly. Before, basically, if you stayed alive for 3 years, you got it. The second thing is we ended collective bargaining. Now there's what they call collaborative conferencing, but it's a much different approach for teachers. We addressed tort reform last year, which we think is a major attraction for business.
Let me stop you here for just a second because I want to ask you about the collective bargaining with teachers in more detail. Because here in New York State, what we've seen is that the teachers unions have such power that it's very difficult for people to fight back. I just interviewed a woman who lost her job because she spoke out against the unions. Is the culture in Tennessee different with the Tennessee teachers unions?
Yeah, I think that's really safe to say. I mean, the culture with unions in general would be much different in Tennessee than they are in New York, and we think that's a real competitive advantage for us. But, you know, this year, the other significant thing we did with government employees, it literally just passed today about 3 hours ago, is address the civil service laws around government hiring. You know, in government, there's two kind of taxes. There's the one you charge folks, and then there's the unseen tax of having a government that doesn't operate as efficiently as it should. And every one of our 22 commissioners said the way you can make government more efficient is to address the way that we hire and we decide who we're going to vote and who we're going to lay off in those cases. And that has to be on merit, not just on seniority. And we were able to get that passed just this morning.
You know, the fact that this is revelatory is amazing to me. You also did some tort reform down there. You want to talk a little bit about that, too?
Well, you know, we did. Again, I think what you have to look around and say is, what are your competitor or peer states have in place? And we looked at everything from caps on damages to some other things, and we realized we weren't as competitive. Interestingly, and there was a lot of pushback from trial attorneys and others saying, oh, you're going to, you know, this is taking away an element of fairness. We think all that element of protection is still there, but we're now a much, much more attractive place to do business, and we've seen that. Some corporations that have literally this past year decided to come here, and we ask why, they say, when you change the law on tort reform, it was a big influence for us.
Well, you know, Mitch Daniels has been a mentor for you, the governor of Indiana. It's kind of obvious. You know, it occurs to me, I got to let you go, but, you know, maybe the GSA is looking for a new manager to fix some of these problems with the staffing there. Maybe you're the guy to do it. Governor, thanks for coming on. An absolute pleasure talking to you, and congratulations on being tax-free.
Thanks so much.
All right.